Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Bay Street Capital Holdings podcast titled, How Did You Do It and Why Should I Care? This series aims to highlight women doing amazing work in various industries. So today we are so lucky to be joined by Jessica Chin Foo, who is Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships at Kiwi Tech, Project Manager for an accelerator called Startout, and Consultant for FinTech Polynesia. Hi, Jessica. Lovely to meet you. And what a lot of titles you have. Let's have a little introduction.
I know that was a mouthful. Thank you so much, Laila, for having me here. I'm really excited to spend this half hour with you.
Perfect. So I guess my first question would be, how did you do it and why should I care? How did you get involved in so many industries and what's it like being a businesswoman in all of these industries?
Yeah, I think the journey that brought me where I am today is really around passion and being the person that I am. I love being around innovators. So part of my role within Kiwi Tech, which is a technology investment company that focuses on providing software development services in exchange for being an equity stakeholder within innovators. We have over 400 startups in our portfolio. So, and I've engaged with about, brought on in the portfolio over 30, really being surrounded by entrepreneurs that love what they're doing, addressing, disrupting their market, or just pollinating ideas and really getting in the grind of things. And what's exciting for me is to be part of an extension of their team in advising them on strategic partnerships, but also with our development team to support from their product, and being involved with an ecosystem that also has advisors, investors, other strategic partners. Like this is where I met up Will, right, from Bay Street Capital, in terms of other investors that are interested in looking at deal flow that are still early, but have great potential. So that passion of being around innovation is something, that brought me within Kiwi Tech. But actually, the way that, how did I meet the co-founders, was in 2012. I angel invested in a CPG company, a winery based out of Davis, California, which is where I went to college. I'm originally from Tahiti, French Polynesia, and my family have assets in the leisure and hospitality space. So investing has always been kind of part of our DNA. And I was like, okay, I'll go and try it out, and did the winery thing, which was awesome learning experience. And during that time, I wanted to bring some technology for the vineyard operation and do like leaf recognition of varietals. Like if you go as a wine club member, enhancing the user experience of the wine club members. And that's when I met Kiwi Tech, actually. And at the end, I ended up not doing it because it was like an app development, and I was already managing like 20 staff from like a marketing sales perspective. But kept good good connection with them and sponsor some of their investors events. And when I decided to come back in the entrepreneurial space, paying my network, and a position with the team came on, and that's how I joined them in the fall of 2018. So
that is really awesome.
Yeah, that's the story with that one. In terms of Startout, I'm all about leveling the playing field for all entrepreneurs, and being from Tahiti, French Polynesia, but looking really Asian. Like my heritage is definitely mixed Asian, so trying to give back in various ways of within the extension of the ecosystem. So empowering LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs. That's something that resonates to my heart very much. So when you can mix things from work and your passion, I feel you can really create a bigger impact. If that makes sense. Yeah.
That is great to hear. And what an interesting story as to how you met the co-founders of Kiwi Tech.
I know.
That is great. So I think you're really heavily involved in the tech industry. And my next question would be, what inspired you to sort of pursue a career in tech? Did it start in college? Did it start earlier?
Yeah. So my first job, so I went, so my background, like I've mentioned, I'm originally from Tahiti, French Polynesia, and I was, my grandparents or my mom was like, you have either the choice to go to Paris or Davis, because both we had assets both in both cities for college, which is great options instead of being on the islands. I don't think a lot of, I'm very fortunate in that sense. And I was like, oh, I want to speak English, so I'll go to Davis. My grandfather had a property there, and I went. I did not know you as a foreigner. You had to take like the SATs and all of these things. So I went to like junior college first, and then transferred to UC Davis. Kind of understanding a little bit. So I was among a lot of different we'll say students pool and just a lot of diversity from junior college, and then after going to a public school, and everybody at UC Davis had a lot of interest in technology and from an agricultural perspective and medical, so we were always talking about innovative ideas. So when I graduated UC Davis, my first job was actually at a startup, a real tech startup. And I really saw how they scaled as they were raising. Like I started as like the admin, and then I was like the office coordinator, and then I was like a web marketing consultant within like 2 months, as before coming on. And we moved from little spaces to mid spaces to bigger spaces. I was like, wow, this is, and it was all about creating websites for realtors and brokers. Like there was no robots, there wasn't, much in terms of SEOs, SEM, kind of like that way. It was like everybody just needed to get a website. It was like a new address, right? Like you needed to get a domain name. Like it was really at the early to mid 2000. And I really enjoy that. Like that was really fun. And then I decided to get an MBA from New York Institute of Technology, just to get more in depth in technology. And then I was an analyst, a clean tech analyst for the French Trade Commission, which is now Business France. So like doing analysis of innovation, connecting, scouting for M&A, basically for French energy groups, and connecting like politicians, like on a bigger infrastructure. All of this was really fascinating to me. How and that was when the Obama administration was all about let's push on renewable energy. Let's really put the dollars in, and that's something as an islander that I love, that I'm really passionate about, is sustainability. So being respectful of Mother Nature, that's kind of ingrained in my DNA as well. I think it just kind of unfolded, like as you again go into your passion. Technology seems like a not a no-brainer, but just always sparks passion, because there's so much that you could do. You could be giving back exactly to Mother Nature, and like being more respectful, getting solar panels that are creating good energy, that you're not relying on fossil fuels, especially for islanders, where a lot of the electricity comes from thermal, so fuel that is being burned. So you really see the impact not only from transporting it, but also the waste that happens, right? All of that, and you're like, but we have so much sun. Like, why don't we do that, right? Like, so that was really for me a portion where I was really interested in technology. But then I kind of changed. I was like going into advocacy and like a little bit of political ways, like in French Polynesia, again, like wanting to give back to that heritage. I joined as a technical advisor to the Minister of Energy. Now, it was like I was the only woman in the office as a technical advisor, and it was
Wow.
so I don't want to say like banana republic, but kind of, how it was really eye opener in like the political space. Definitely not like here, although given how the past terms has been, it has shown different side of the U.S. policy and politics, but in an island that's still a French territory, and so, but have their own president and regulation and laws, but still a territory of France, like you would say Puerto Rico to the U.S. Being like a woman in a cabinet for a minister and putting in like feed-in tariff, like pushing like all of those regulations, that was so hard, Laila. Like
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was super challenging and very male dominating, but a great kind of skin hardening, if you will.
Yeah. You developed a thick skin from that experience for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, I want to make sure that more women are in seats and getting into the political space. My term there was like 9 months because the president changed.
Oh yeah.
And when the president changed, they didn't take some of my projects, which now they're releasing it 12 years after, which I'm like, okay.
Oh wow.
Great.
You know what? At least they're getting released now. Better late than never.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's especially that one project where they're using deep sea water to create AC, which is something in the islands. Like if you have been in Hawaii or anywhere where it's tropical, in the summer, AC is like a must-have pretty much. And it's so energy draining, as I've mentioned. Like in the islands, you have like so much electricity coming out of fuel, which then is not at all sustainable.
Yeah.
The technology in some of the hotels that were already launched like 12 years ago have validated the technology, and I pushed it to have it in the public hospital, which needs, like, that's where you really either it's the high-end luxury tourists that want their AC, right? Or when you're in care, like especially now, how we're seeing like being able to have less infection bacterias, right? So having AC is really important, and even when you're doing testings, right? So being able to fuel that coming from the water and not spending so much in electricity was a big project that I had, and I'm glad that now finally they're having it, pushing it this year. So
yeah, for sure. It's good to see your hard work pay off.
Yeah, after a long haul. Yeah. So that was, a good experience, and as in this space, understanding a little bit more and kind of being advocating strongly for what you believe in, but understanding, well, as a whole, there are processes and systems in place that sometimes you really it's more of a marathon than a sprint, if you will.
Oh, 100% for sure. And sort of that leads on to my next question, because the tech space is relatively new and it's sort of a bit more difficult to navigate. So what were the best resources that helped you along the way?
Yeah, great question. I think when you're coming into tech, being, there are a lot of different areas. It's ever changing, ever evolving. So the connection that you make now can be or anywhere that are going in the tech, and that resonates with you. Like you do have like a good rapport. You're able to connect on different levels. Then foster those relationships. I think those are really as like the Kiwi tech experience.
Yeah.
That I mentioned. But I remember when I was an analyst at the French Trade Commission, I spoke with like the founder of Craigslist, Twitter, like they were
Wow.
starting, and a couple of my colleagues are like doing super well in tech, and I changed. I went into my own journey of passion and traveled and did a lot of things. But going back into it from my, analyst time to now since 2018, I would say definitely the network that you create, the company that you keep, right? From that sense, are your tribe. So to respect and also feed into that, the network, and whether it's from the school, also, there's different mentors. I'm a mentor at UC Davis. I give back there, as well as the Founder Institute and the Chamber of Commerce in French Polynesia in their incubator, and just being able to reach out to mentors that you can feel that exactly they resonate with your ideas, with your values, keeping that in mind, and pulling out resources, being open in asking for help or asking for support.
Very important. Yes. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right. So those are things. And then from a government perspective, there are a lot, of resources. The Small Business Administration, I remember, I was consulting for like their 8A certified association in Sacramento, and they have a lot of information, like in terms of how to start your business, how to how to create digital transformation, kind of from an entrepreneurship perspective, but also understanding kind of what in tech, what do you mean by tech, because tech is such a big word too, right? So there's different places. There's you have biotech, you have hardware, you have software, and even like a consumer product, right? Like a mouse or a microphone that is able to take off the noises of everywhere, right? WebEx is just released that, which is amazing, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it's WebEx. I can't remember who I saw it not a while ago, but I remember a couple corporate ventures was like, this is what we need. We need to find, like everybody's doing this, whether it's the kids coming in or the dogs or anything, like the noise would be canceling, right?
Oh, that's amazing. And it's interesting now, how we're moving more online because of the pandemic, and all of these technologies are being even more refined.
Right. Yes. I mean, that's where there's disruption. I mean,
yeah,
it's the silver lining. It's a hard one. We've all been affected deeply in our families, whether it's actually real loss or, from an asset perspective, from a people perspective, there's a lot that we can take in. But I think as we grow all together, being more of a community, I got vaccinated 2 days ago, and already I'm like, oh, I feel relieved. I could see maybe people. It's
very, it's a lot in the mind as well, because once you've got that first dose or that second dose, you'll feel a lot more like your guard is down, because I'm like at least a little bit protected against the virus.
Right. Yes, for sure.
But that's awesome. So I guess my next question would be, you seem to have a lot of mentors, but also a lot of experience before coming into the industry. But are there any lessons that you wish you would have known, anything that slipped through the cracks and nobody told you?
Yeah, and that was the part, like fostering your network, like
Yeah.
fostering that. Like if I knew when I was an analyst, right? Like at that time, like I have tons of contacts then that have IPO. Yeah, I mean, like that could have been a great just opportunity to just learn more or foster relationship at that younger time, and that I didn't see through, and really sometimes listen. Like um, I'm so passionate. Like I'm like an air, like I'm a Capricorn with a rising sign in Aries, whoever is into horoscope. And I'm all about like fire going in. Like I'm a great builder and
Yeah.
um, sometimes very stubborn. And that was, that's a lesson that I learned in some of the, like the investments and that I've made. Um, and some people did give me good advice, but it was so not, at the time I was not able to listen. And I think it's really good to be collaborative right from the beginning, even if just agreeing to disagree and include that disagreement as in a plan of contingency. I think that's important.
Mm.
Be able to be humble in many ways of what you're trying to achieve, even though you're like, oh, this is so awesome, yes, I'm like doing it great,
Yeah.
but not being so much of the center, right, but really looking outwards as well. I think that's a very that's a deep lesson that I learned, which made me the person that I am today, and I'm giving back in ways that I can. And that's one big lesson for me. And what I've continued doing also is helping out, giving back when you can, and that's something that always. I think when people have the time to be able to give back in in ways, whether it's from work or in family, right? So having that balance of not just working.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And speaking of sort of being humble, is there any event or anything in your life where you're like, that was my biggest failure? And what did you learn from it?
Yeah. So that first angel investment that I did was a great lesson. But the partnership, so the other, I learned a lot in terms of selecting co-founders in
Mm.
the venture, learning what accountability, character, and all of that. I learned it the hard way, like
Mm.
disagreements and which impacted the business, and then the vent, the yeah impacted so negatively. So that's something to do your due diligence of people. Like I'm like
Yeah.
super nice and super kind, and sometimes I don't see, not that people are ill intended, but they have sometimes more interest in their agenda. And so making sure that whoever you're onboarding as a partner, whether it's in a work venture or even in a personal space, that you're aligned in the agenda, that you agree that, and there's respect and communication. I think that's something that fell short in one of the ventures that I did. Yeah.
Wow, that's really important. And I think a lot of people do overlook doing your due diligence on people because you are working with them, and it may be 24/7 or maybe in a 9 to 5, but you still have to, meet these people and get on.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is awesome. So my next question is, what is one common myth about your career that you would like to debunk?
I don't know.
Maybe perhaps about, the tech industry as a whole or being an entrepreneur.
Um, A common myth. Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, I mean, a common myth in terms of being an entrepreneur is, I don't know if it's really a myth. I think everybody knows it's like, yeah, the chances of failure are higher than of success.
Mm. Mm.
Um, but in terms of maybe capital raise, as an entrepreneur, some believe, I was talking to them that, yeah, if it really, yeah, there's different schools of entrepreneurs. I think like some entrepreneurs are thinking, okay, I'm going to build like more of a small business, but it's going to be, I'm going to tap into this market, and I have this idea. This is great, launching it out. And then there's this side of entrepreneurs that are startups and that
Mm.
are looking for an upside, like a major upside, going public, getting a merger. And those are like two different categories.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel the line is blurry for some, and they think, okay, I have this great market, like, yeah, you could take the whole school system in like one county or one state, but it may not be scalable elsewhere. Um, and so, going and raising institutional funds may not be the best plan, because then they're going to switch the direction of, your business. You're going to dilute. I mean, and yeah. So there's those conversation. I think as an entrepreneur, seeing really which category do you fall into, and when do you, yeah, if you want to keep being like the CEO, right, like not having
Mm.
more power, yeah, maybe that's, yes, it may not be the startup mentality. It may just be more of a, a small medium-sized business that you'll have. So yeah, just that one thought I had, like this past couple of weeks, as I was talking to some founders that were like, I was like, okay, well, not, yeah.
Yeah, definitely an important idea to keep in mind, even as the company is still growing. So, yes. Right. So now some more questions about you. So you're obviously very busy with your many roles, but in your free time, have you read or listened to anything recently that's really inspired you?
Did I read? Read where, I can't remember, was the book. It's The Goddess by something. I can't remember the title. That I finished not a while ago. That was about, it's a poetry revisit of Greek methodology.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Wow.
the Goddess Within or something. I can't remember. But that was really good. I love poetry, so that's something that's really nice. In terms of my free time, like book, from a book perspective, I'm so, we'll say, more of a, like, um, comics. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely a comics.
Oh, wow. Okay. Are you more of a superhero comics fan?
I'm totally a comics fan, so I'm more into that, and yeah, like very into, yeah, like the manhua, and yeah. So those are like my easy digestible,
Yeah.
like non-thinking things more than watching.
Mhm.
So yeah. Mhm.
Your little escapisms for the day, getting lost in a comic book.
Yeah, exactly. That, and then meditation and yoga are really, like more of my rituals to like get my body to be present, and then for my mind to
Yeah.
escape as well. But comics is light, and it's usually like funny, yeah,
Yeah, for
romantic,
sure.
yeah.
That's awesome. So this is typically a hard question because I'm asking you to narrow it down to three people, but who are three people in your life who have influenced you the most?
Um, Just give me 5 minutes. Sorry, I had a hard stop at 4. Yeah, so 3 people that inspired me the most, I think my mom. She's an entrepreneur herself, has built, her business, single mom, more of a small business, kept her affairs well, and still invested in a lot of assets in the country. So I'm always inspired by her. And I think like all of my ancestors, really, like I'm from that sense, I keep on learning a lot in terms of my heritage and the grit. My great grandfather migrated from China, from south of China, and he came to San Francisco, and went to Tahiti after, and did a lot of trade between San Francisco and Tahiti, started like the first bank there, fought a lot for the rights for Chinese immigrants with the French, with France, and did a lot of nonprofit or philanthropic association into that. So he's definitely a big role model for me in terms of entrepreneurship and investment. And then lately, out of some of the vice chair of the Chinese Culture Center in San Francisco, and we're having a gala next month. And one of the honorees is Janet Yang. She got a Trailblazer Award, and I nominated her because as well, she was really like, I think I've been more in the US now than in Tahiti, where I've traveled both, but she's the producer of the Joy Luck Club, which is like one of the first, I don't know if you've seen, where you have like Chinese American ladies in screen. That was one of the first movies where a lot of interracial also, right? Like, from a romantic perspective, and it was really good to see that melting pot, like the first generation, right? Like where I could identify, and so to that, and she's been really, she released like on Netflix, Over the Moon, I think is the cartoon as well. So yeah, there was just keeping like having that heritage, but being here, and especially what's happening with all the hate crimes, and I just feel that was they're definitely inspiration to keep the culture, of where you belong as well. So as I'm kind of in many ways, like have the Chinese, Tahitian, French, and then American way, it's kind of like a mixed fried rice or something.
Well, never forget where you came from in that fried rice.
Put elements of everything so to make something good.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, Jessica. It was absolutely lovely to hear your story and to get to know you better.
Likewise. Thanks for letting me voice out, and happy to support the podcast, and anyone that has, kind of needing some support, happy to connect as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.